generous than those countries were to us, meaning they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States of America over the decades. They ripped us off like no country's ever been ripped off in history. And we're going to be much nicer than they were to us, but it's substantial money for the country, nevertheless. We have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, for decades. And, you know, that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. Some we probably won't. It won't be so pleasant. But I think most countries are agreeing with me. They actually, many of them have actually apologized. They said, look, we have taken advantage. And I don't blame them as much as I blame the people that stood. In this case, I can say the men, because so far they've been all men, haven't they? But the men that sat right there and behind the Resolute desk, mostly the Resolute desk, you know. I don't know if you know, you have a choice of 7 desks. The Resolute is the one I like, but some chose other ones. But they sat right behind a desk right in this location, and they let our country be hurt very badly. But I didn't do that.
Tariffs, Mr. President, you've been talking about the pharma tariffs and what to expect there. Are you going to exempt life-saving medications, or what can we expect there?
Well, we'll be announcing it soon, but we have to bring pharmaceuticals, drugs and pharmaceuticals back into our country.
And what's the rate you're looking at? 15%, 25%?
We're looking at a certain number that will be enough to get the drugs and the pharmaceutical companies bringing their product into our country. We never want to have to rely on other countries for that. Like we did at COVID.
Sir, Mr. President, on the car tariffs and just the reciprocal tariffs, a lot of countries are making gestures, including Britain, which is talked about reducing digital services. They want to make deals.
They do.
Are you in a mode, or
Well, it's possible if we can get something for the deal, but we've been taken advantage of for 40 years, maybe more. And it's just not going to happen anymore. But yeah, I'm certainly open to that.
So do you think
if we can do something where we get something for it?
Mr. President, do you plan to?
Would that happen before the tariffs are announced?
No, probably later.
Probably.
Mr. President, do you?
It's a process. Do it probably later.
How many years have we heard the narrative that you cannot depend on China, that they'll use their economic heft to somehow corner you? Now it appears it's the U.S. who was the real danger. In terms of your question, Trump's tactics have remained the same, but the world has changed. Trump is playing poker. Collectively, his opponents have a bet of cards. And if they call his bluff, it's going to be over for him. Taking on the entire world was a mistake. Bullies usually focus on weaker opponents, using them as examples to frighten others. He is bluffing. I mean, what he's doing is taking money out of his consumers' American consumer pockets, and then he thinks he can dole them back to them and that they'll be somehow thankful. The U.S. has vulnerabilities in terms of inflation and collective tariff retaliation. Trump is taking money, as I said, from one side, his own taxpayers, and then he thinks he can give it back to them as tariffs, and that this will somehow be welcome. It's an effort to control the economy, to reindustrialize America, but it's only going to depress investment and create more uncertainty.